Hey, what's up, everyone? Dragon here with.
Ashley?
Welcome to another edition of the KAIJU Cataclysm. Today we are finally talking about Godzilla, Planet of Monsters, the first of a trilogy of animated films produced by Toho and animated by Polygon. We've been hearing about this for a while, and then we finally started seeing kind of our first looks, a little bit of it, but as is apparently now Godzilla tradition, they were hiding Godzilla for the most part because, again, when you have a monster that's like, you know, apparently now the size of a mountain, let's hide him as long as possible because, that's the whole point of a kaiju movie is not seeing the giant. But we finally got a look at him. More details have been coming in. We're actually getting a lot about the plot long before we really saw much of the movie itself. Right now, there's only currently two trailers, neither of which really show you a whole hell of a lot. Most of it's just kind of the human aesthetic, which
Yeah.
is very different from anything we've seen in a Godzilla film. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give you the rundown synopsis now, and then we'll just kind of talk about it. So bear with me. It's a little bit long, but you guys can read along on screen. But yeah, it is kind of a doozy, so to speak. Again, so basically, the synopsis goes: of the final summer of the 20th century, when mankind learns it is no longer the sole ruler of planet Earth, the planet is beset by the emergence of colossal creatures that roam the Earth, and the king among them is Godzilla. For a half a century, these beasts engage in ferocious battles with each other and mankind, humans unable to compete, prepare for exile from their home planet. In the year 2048, a select few humans are chosen by the central government artificial intelligence infrastructure to set out on an interstellar immigration vessel, the Eritreum. I think I'm saying that right.
I don't know, Artrum?
Yeah, on a
Something.
11.9 light year journey for the planet Tau E and the Sagittarius constellation. Again, I hope I'm saying that right. But when they arrive after 20 years of space travel, the remnants of mankind find that environmental conditions on Tau E to be much different than expected and basically uninhabitable by humans. One youth on board the immigration vessel, Haru, had seen his parents killed by Godzilla before his eyes when he was only 4 years old. Good memory. Ever since, he has thought of nothing but returning to Earth to defeat Godzilla. When the doors to the immigration now closed, Haru and the other crew spearhead a return to Earth decision despite severely oh my god, what is that word?
Where?
That one.
Your thumb's in the way.
That long, weird A1.
Attenuated?
Yeah, we'll go with that. And
I
hazardous
don't know.
conditions on board for such a long trip back. Somehow, the Eritreum makes the return journey in one piece, but the home they return to has become an alien planet. 20,000 years have elapsed, and a new ecosystem has emerged with Godzilla atop the food chain. Can mankind take back its native planet? Will Howard get his revenge? So, already very, very different. Godzilla emerging for the first time much, much later in history. I mean, obviously, for the longest time, traditionally, Hito was emerging first in 1954, and then all the subsequent films that came after that, would dance around different continuities, but 54 was always, kind of the benchmark. That was always in canon, and then 2014 kind of switched it up a little bit, where yes, 54 happened, but it wasn't quite as involved. And then Shin threw 54 out of the way, basically saying that 2016 was the first time we'd ever seen Godzilla. And now this film is changing that even more, so where Godzilla didn't even come to like 2048, which meaning other kaiju had emerged before him. There also been other details of plot saying that basically Godzilla comes, and when he shows up, he actually kills some of the kaiju that are, fighting. And he basically kind of just, you know, asserts himself as kind of the ruler of the earth. And we just kind of figured, okay, Godzilla was the last to show up, and that's that. But then we had other reports or newer bits about the plot where it basically explains Godzilla is kind of like the pinnacle of evolution, the ultimate form of natural selection, if you will, where he basically originated from plant-based life. So essentially, the planet grew Godzilla. It's kind of like the ultimate answer to, I guess, to all its problems, kaiju and human. And that's where it's different. And we've seen images of Godzilla because the first one we saw was kind of this blackened silhouette for like the first poster,
Mm-hmm.
when which admittedly from the profile kind of had a bit of the legendary Godzilla kind of look that a lot of
Yeah.
people were saying, and I would be inclined to agree. And then we finally seen all photos of him where you could a nice big like statue they built of him, and obviously not life size, and you can really see him now. right away you can see he's very muscular. His whole body is like basically just like made up of almost like muscle
He's got
fiber.
like a weird sumo body.
Kind of, yeah. He's a little disproportionate. Everyone always has different issues with every Godzilla design. They kind of nitpick parts of his anatomy. But yeah, one of the things they described that his body his muscles are almost like made of like armored muscle fibers, like metal. So he's basically indestructible. And for once, Toho or anyone who made a Godzilla film tried to explain how something so large can exist on land, and they basically say that he produces like an electromagnetic field, which helps support his mass, which complete pseudoscience. And I've always said these movies are science fiction. This is the fiction part, something that big cannot live. But I like how we know that because in real life, something that big can't live on land, that within the realm of science fiction, they at least acknowledge that fact. It's not like the physics in the movie are completely like, okay, we know technically normal things can't get that big, but because he has a electromagnetic field, like what the hell is that going to do? It makes him able. So at least they acknowledge that. So it's enough science in your science fiction to kind of pass. I'm glad. I mean, most people probably don't care, but I'm kind of glad they acknowledge that because it is really much like it's that unrealistic. Nothing that big can live on land. And this Godzilla is now the largest ever. I believe he's, I don't know if they give like the exact measurements, but I'm pretty sure he's at least twice as tall as Shin.
Yeah.
I don't think he starts off that way when we see him in 2048, but from what it sounds like, he's been just kind of growing and evolving for over 20,000 years. Unabated. So I think, he's just kind of gotten that big now. So essentially, he literally is like almost like an extension of the planet itself, and I think that's the vibe they are going for. So you've seen pictures of his design right after. Let's just talk about the design. What do you think?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Like I know, like I said, he kind of's got like a sumo body where he's like, his legs are kind of short and they're skinnier than the rest of him.
They're very squat too.
His arms and like shoulders are like, well, his shoulders are massive, and then he's got his little arms, and then
bigger than Shin's arms though.
His body, like the core of his body, is just giant and muscly and bearish.
I was gonna say, yeah, a lot of people were saying that.
It's basically like if the legendary Godzilla had his legs shrink and like was even more muscly.
Yeah, he's very like built up, and it's not even just like, oh, he's big, so called muscly. You can literally see all the.
Yeah.
It looks like he is just ripping up in the gym, basically.
Like he's one step away from exploding.
Yeah.
So muscly.
Especially if you see him from the front, he's got like freaking
like,
linebacker neck, or his traps. He does like it's traps day every day at the gym for this Godzilla.
Non-stop trap day.
But the interesting thing is, like, a lot of people were complaining, for instance, about, like, not everyone. I mean, I didn't have a problem. I mean, I know I didn't like Legendary Godzilla's feet. I don't think anyone did. But some people were even complaining about, like, the bulk of his legs, how big. And I was kind of like, yeah, but you gotta understand, too. Look how, especially, that one had a very big upper body, too. But Godzilla's still big. You're gonna need these big column-like legs to kind of hold him up. His legs are gonna have to be big. I know some people thought they looked too chunky, and they preferred Shin's legs. And again, I like the digigrade look of Shin's leg where they have that extra joint.
Yeah.
But I still think they should have made his legs thicker. Still have, the extra jointed leg like a dinosaur, but still make it wider, because one of the problems I had with Shin's, like, part of his design was, like, his legs seemed too narrow for something that big. I mean, it looked cool as an aesthetic from far away, but when you realize how big he is, it's like, those legs would need to be larger. I mean, again, he wouldn't be able to stand up anyway, like, whatsoever, because he's just too damn big. But just to kind of at least sell it a little bit better, I thought just widen his legs more, because when you have something that large, it's if you see it with legs that are too skinny, I feel that right away you go like, ugh. And basically this Godzilla has kind of legendary upper body more or less, but his legs are significantly thinner. And when you see that, I think then you see why Legendary made the decision to give him these big legs, because you right away. This is just me speaking, but it doesn't look quite right. Like, his legs look too...
And I think one of the things, too, that, like, not that we keep forgetting, but, like, it's probably, like, I doubt we're going to see very many shots of the entire, like, his entire body throughout this movie, especially considering his size.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more like...
Yeah.
Well, like most
like,
Godzilla movie, it's always kind of, like, midsection up, usually, because there's always, like...
But especially because he's fucking mountain-sized.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And
people are going to be looking up a lot more.
It looks like the base of the planet, it's all going to be like huge overgrown forest, so I doubt you're going to see a
Giant,
lot.
yeah. So yeah, it's like I was saying with Legendary's Godzilla's feet. It's like, if there's something about it I have to not like, I'd rather be that because
This thing you're not going to see much of.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if his head or something was done looking at it,
it's funny too because the statue they showed, I saw, obviously the pictures that you showed me initially, but I actually saw after too. Somebody took some pictures with the flash, and he's just all green, which makes sense if he's a plant.
He's very monochromatic,
but
yes.
I'm hoping there's going to be a little more color variation, because even in Godzilla normally, like, he's green or gray or whatever, depending on which one.
Usually, most of the films, he's been like kind of a charcoal, dark gray.
But there's still kind of like variation, you know what I mean? Not just like a flat color.
Textural variation, yeah. It's like you look at any animal, for instance, it's like one color. You look at like an elephant, it's gray. Okay, but if you look at the elephant's skin, it's got shades of it. It's got parts that are lighter, darker. There's stuff to break it up. It's not just like a wash. You know what I mean? And granted, this is a Godzilla that's animated, so this is different. This isn't like a live-action suit that's been built, or a digital model that's meant to be.
It's supposed to be like cel-shaded.
Yeah, so that's the other thing too. Now, okay, so obviously this is the first, not the first animated. I mean, you have the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, and you have the Godzilla animated series that's based on the '98.
Before you go into this, I have one more thing to say about his design.
Oh.
Like his face, I know some people said he looks very old and tired, and I agree.
Well,
if you look at his face.
Well, I guess if he's like 20,000 years plus old, I guess he is old.
I realized he was supposed to be 20,000 years old.
Yeah, so. I mean, but here's my question, though. With that said...
Like, was he just wandering around for 20,000 years?
I don't know. Like, here's the thing. How does he survive? How does he maintain himself? Because, again, I don't think there's a nuclear aspect to this origin. And at least not that we've seen, unless there's something that they're not saying yet that we're going to see in the movie. Like, how did he evolve from plant-based life? Like, it's just kind of weird that one day, like, hey, a bunch of trees decided to make Godzilla. It's like, so I'm wondering if maybe it's something we did to the environment, and the environment itself produced him. So there could still be a nuclear allegory there. Like, maybe, well, if giant kaiju are like waging war on the Earth, maybe, hell, we start dropping nukes and fighting them, and all that radiation went into the Earth, and the Earth just kind of spat out Godzilla. So there could still be an element of that. So we don't know. Again, I'm hoping that despite these long, detailed synopses, they're still saving some stuff for the movie, because we don't see much of Godzilla. They've talked about kind of, he's evolved from plant-based life, that he is like the apex, piece of evolution. But we still don't know much about him. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe they're purposely holding some of this stuff back for the film. But yeah, I noticed that too. And that's the thing too. If he is a plant, if you look at his face too, for instance, like he doesn't really have teeth. He has like kind of like the.
It's like the silhouette of the plants kind of form a mouth.
Yeah, and that's my other question.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, and here's my thing. I mean, and I know other people have put forth this, not issue, but kind of quandary, if you will. If he's a plant or like plant-based, why does he look like Godzilla?
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, and you could even make this, and this is kind of the same argument I kind of made with Shin too. I mean,
unless they're gonna try to say it's some sort of like symbiotic relationship, or maybe it's not. He's not completely a plant, but maybe it's like a weird outer.
Maybe again, we don't know. There's more things about this Godzilla that we don't know than we do know. Which, realistically speaking, I kind of like. I kind of like going to this movie with these questions, because it means I'm interested. They're putting forth an interesting, scenario where I'm curious to learn more, rather than just kind of giving it all out. But with that said, even with Shin, who was basically like a bunch of smaller organisms that kind of became. I mean, it was Shin's. What Shin really started out as was a bit more ambiguous. But it always kind of led me to wonder, like, why did he ultimately evolve into something that looked like Godzilla? I know his form was self-changing, self-evolving, I guess, for something that needed to walk on land. And it kind of worked. But with something like this, too, it's like, okay, if it doesn't really sound like it's starting out as even like an animal of some kind, why look like... I mean, it looks like Godzilla because it's a Godzilla movie, so it ultimately needs to look like Godzilla. But if you're changing his origin so radically to the point where... he's not really an animal anymore. He's not a dinosaurian creature. I mean, the reason why Godzilla used to look like Godzilla, because technically Godzilla was a dinosaur.
Yeah.
He's not even that anymore, so it's like, why does he look... And, I don't know. The irony is, we always said with Shin, he basically is Hedorah. You know what I mean? And now with this film, he's basically Biollante. So I was wondering if this is like the new joke, is like Legendary's done a very traditional Godzilla, ancient prehistoric creature that feeds off radiation. It's like you can just go down the list and check off all the boxes you need to. And I feel like Toho, because they're over there, they're giving us the status quo Godzilla. We're going to be over here trying all kinds of weird new shit. And so, okay, we made Godzilla Hedorah in the last movie. Hey, let's make him Biollante in this one.
Hey,
but
all I'm saying is there better be some sort of Biollante,
what?
Easter egg in this movie. I want it.
I would hope. I think it's called Godzilla.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, give me a Rose Kaiju.
A Rose Kaiju. Hey, maybe that's Godzilla's final form in the movie. We don't know. But here's my thing though. Like, okay, well, but if you look at even Biollante's design, I mean, I know Biollante was more like a hybrid, but when you looked at Biollante, you could definitely see plant and you could definitely see the animal in it. But even like she was for the most part just green, but there was a lot of breakup in the color and the texture.
Her glowy stomach.
Yeah, there was a lot of different things. And whereas this Godzilla, okay, he's a plant-based kaiju, fine. But like you said, he's very monochromatic. He's very flat in the color. So I kind of wish that even though he's a plant, I guess he's got to be more green than anything. I was kind of hoping they'd kind of maybe break it the color just a little bit, various shades of green.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Just to kind of
I'm like, get some like vinage through
yeah,
the
just
air
something.
or something.
If you're really gonna go the plant route or plant-based, I mean, we don't know how much of that. But again, I thought, okay, fine. It would be my first choice. No. But if you're gonna do it, work with it. Utilize, what that
thing. I mean, have
give
they
you.
explained where the other kaiju kind of come from? Because not all of them are.
No, as far as I know, he's the only one
That's
who's
why I'm
like
thinking.
that.
I'm starting to wonder, and I didn't think of it before we started this, but like maybe it really is like he it's not just it's like an outside layer. It's not what he is, because if he was a kaiju, and I mean if he's the oldest, like, and not protecting the planet, but you know what I mean?
I think kind of
symbiotic relationship.
well,
It would make sense. It would almost be like not like a plant armor. That sounds dumb, but you know what I mean?
Well, again, unless it's kind of one of those things because the world has had big monsters running around, maybe the planet itself kind of try to emulate it a little bit.
Unless he's so, I guess.
Well, again, he's not the first one to show. He's just, I think, kind of the last one to really last.
If he's so old, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was sleeping or something, and he was all overgrown with plants.
But I mean, maybe.
And maybe
but,
he woke up, so he's just covered in plants.
But
I don't know.
But see, I actually would dig that. Like Godzilla almost has like a forest growing on him. Or something. Kind of like when you see like whales that have barnacles.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is the synopsis even says he's evolved from.
I guess.
It's not like he's so old.
Unless it was a bad translation, maybe.
Which we've had those before.
Yeah.
I know, but
I honestly think that would be cooler than him just like you said. It would make more sense than him just being straight up a plant dude.
But I think he's a plant dude.
420 every day, guys. That's why he looks so tired.
Yeah.
Just really high.
Just really high. I was like, well, have you seen his eyes?
He's like,
hey guys. Really high over here. He's like the James.
So basically, this movie.
He looks like James Franco on the Pineapple Express poster. Look at James Franco's face in that poster. He's like.
This movie's just going to be Godzilla wandering around really high, wondering why people are attacking him.
Godzilla's just really high, just looking for like his keys or something. Or, like spaceships are unloading, and he's just like, "The fuck is going on, man?" Which.
Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway.
But that would be cool. I kind of hope maybe it is something like that instead of just being straight up
as
plant.
cool as that would be, I don't think it is. I think it because. What I think they're kind of going for, it was in Princess Mononoke when they had like the
Spirit of the Forest.
Yeah, that big thing. It was kind of granted, it was a bit more metaphysical kind of thing, but again, it was like this. It was like from the earth. It was grown. It was like this organic. It was like it was.
But that wasn't an actual plant thing. That was like literally a spirit.
Yeah, but it was like came from. I think that's the vibe they're going with her. It's like instead of Godzilla being this horrifically unnatural, like this freak of nature, they're going more for like
pure nature.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they're going the exact opposite. Well, no. What if Godzilla is nature? Because I always say Godzilla is like a force of nature, the right hand of nature. Well, I kind of think they went literal here. Where like no, he is literally kind of nature. It's like if nature just kind of like filed itself into like a conscious form and like.
But again, why choose that form?
But yeah, because it's a Godzilla movie, and he has to look like Godzilla. If this wasn't a Godzilla movie, yes, he would look like. Honestly, he'd probably have multiple forms. He'd be sprouting up all over the world, as But because it's a Godzilla movie, he still has to kind of resemble that silhouette.
Well, if that was the case, couldn't they just like burn down everything?
Well, yeah, but the problem is they want to live there. They're going back to Earth to live,
yeah.
But it's like Now, what do you think of the story in terms of like, okay, now it's the far-flung future, and we're talking space age. Like we have is alien races, alien species that, along with human beings, even though they're going the whole Star Trek route. We're aliens. Why? Because our ears
I
are
was
shaped a
gonna
little
say, I
bit.
noticed one of the characters had elf ears, but I didn't
Yeah,
really.
he's an alien because that's all it takes to make it. That's what it is. And I'm pretty sure one of the alien race is actually the Zillions which are an alien race we've seen from the Godzilla films. So that's kind of cool that they're borrowing from, different Godzilla films like that. But yeah, no. So how do you feel about? Okay, now we're talking like super space age technology, lasers, the whole 9 yard. Like, granted, this is very, very different, but it's like, do you like that they're going?
I mean, I think it's definitely cool and it's obviously different, but everything they're doing with this seems different. So
I mean, I think if you're, it's cool in the sense that okay, we're doing animation as opposed to live action. I know Shin had some great special effects using CGI, but still, for Toho to produce a live action film this science fiction caliber, it would be a very, very expensive movie for them. So it's almost like, okay, if we're gonna do an animated Godzilla film, let's do it more. Let's not just make it animated for the sake of making it an anime. Let's do something with it that we ourselves would have a difficult time doing. Live action. So I like that they went super sci-fi. 'Cause that's cool too. I mean, it's like okay. Now the studio is Polygon that's doing it now. They did Knights of Sidonia. Most recently they did Blame.
blam.
Blam. That's what they would say. It's like, blam. That's like 20 minutes of fun with me and a buddy. I work back and forth. Blam, 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 blam. But yeah, so which it's on Netflix right now. Time of this recording. Now, Polygon is one of those studios which I think they've definitely improved.
I think they also did. Did they also do Agent?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
I know every time I would see stuff of a new show from them or
I
film.
think they pretty much exclusively do like 3D stuff.
Yeah, they're. I don't think they do any kind of 2D traditional animation. They do all 3D stuff, and I think right now they are the biggest 3D animation studio in Japan. I don't know. It seems like most of the big 3D animated series or films coming out of Japan is from Polygon. Now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're sorry. We're just looking at it right now.
I didn't know who else would have done it. I just wanted to double check.
Now, they have a very distinctive style. Now, like, for instance, Knights of Sidonia, I wasn't really a fan of the art design. It's kind of more of that modern anime style. I'm a bit more, I don't want to say elitist, but I'm a bit more, like, old school. I like kind of more the 90s design. I think there's more variation in it. I think it's just aesthetically, it's just my personal preference. But if you guys like the stuff now, that's fine. So I don't hold it against that. That's just a personal preference. But I felt Knights of Sidonia animation-wise was a bit minimalistic. It was very kind of... And I actually heard it was actually a good show. I never watched it, but I heard it was actually very good.
I know the story was supposed to be really good.
Yeah, that's what people kept saying. Like, yeah, But
see, I know you were complaining about the jerky movement, but that was also the first series they really came out with.
Yes.
So it kind of makes sense.
But with that said, that jerky movement has kind of continued. I mean, it is improved, but when you look at like 3D animation, like when you do 3D animation, you have to. It's a different beast than traditional 2D animation. When we say 3D versus 2D, if you watch something like Cowboy Bebop, Dragon Ball Z, or something, or Naruto, that's 2D animation. Yes, I know a lot of some of those shows they'll have like digital, they color digitally, and they might be even animating it digitally, but it's still the image you're seeing inhabits a 2D space. When 3D stuff is like Frozen, Wreck-It Ralph, some of the Overwatch, character backstories you see, like
the shorts.
Yeah, the little shorts they do. That's 3D, and if you look at how all those things move, it moves very fluid. It basically
you can still have really bad 3D movement, but
I'll get to that very soon.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's being a little hard, not very bad, but okay. But you look at those titles we mentioned. The movement is very fluid. It moves basically like real life because in real life we inhabit a 3-dimensional space, so we move accordingly.
And to be fair, a lot of times Disney, I mean, I feel like Disney does a lot of mocap type stuff for their stuff.
Yeah, but you look at others.
Do they? I don't know actually.
Yeah, but I remember stuff like Reboot in the 90s, and a very primitive, 3D animation, but still the movement had a fluidity. You look at something like Beast Wars from the 90s. Again, very cheap, not cheap, but very kind of more primitive, 3D animation. But the movement still had a fluidity because it's three-dimensional. It basically...
I guess I think more video games are mocap now.
I guess, yeah. But like if you look at 3D, it moves differently than 2D because you animate it differently than 2D. Even if the aesthetic is meant to look like a 2D art design, because it's inhabiting a three-dimensional digital space, it moves differently, or so you're supposed to make it to. Now, I know with Polygon, and I'm not sure if this is a budgetary restriction, or maybe this is just kind of their style. The art design, especially, by the way, I love the art design for Planet of Monsters. It has a bit more of that throwback stuff. So when I first saw the character like turn around, I was like, yes, good. Mm-hmm. They kind of did an older style, so I was very happy with how it looked. My question was, how's it going to move? Because again, a Polygon kind of tends to animate the movement of their work kind of more like in a 2D style, and gives it a bit more of a jerkiness. Now Blame was better, but it still kind of had that kind of jerkiness. And from what we've seen in the trailers for this one, it moves better than Blame, but it's still not completely smooth. And I think at this point,
fluid.
And I think it's more or less just their style, which, okay, to each their own. I'm sure there's some people who love it and think it's great, and that's absolutely fine.
Well, and then again, I mean, I still think they're not a very big studio, so it might just literally be manpower too, because they're also producing other. I mean, I know they're working for sure on another Blame movie.
But this is a big deal for them. Like this is officially the next Godzilla installment. Who has already said this isn't like an aside. This is.
But I'm just saying it's a possibility that's part of the reason. So.
Yeah, and again, I understand it's a stylistic choice, but my thing is like I don't mind kind of that 2D more rigid animation style you see like an anime. But then I guess my only thing is like then I would have said go with a 2D. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with them doing a 2D Godzilla animated film because I've always wanted to see Godzilla done in like a anime, like the kind of anime like I grew up to really see Godzilla drawn like that. So when I heard they were going 3D, I was kind of like, okay, that's cool, but I'm kind of like, well, already 3D, it probably has more in terms of movement. It probably has more in common with live action than. So
that's funny because I forgot. I know I showed you this anime KAIJU. I'm trying to see what studio does this because they do 3D and theirs is pretty good.
Well, it's like we saw the Knights of the Zodiac.
By Toei.
We saw the Knights of the Zodiac 3D animated film. Well, and that animated film had a very anime aesthetic.
Yeah, this is just Toei, so I'm kind of like.
Again, I think it's just their stylistic choice. They're combining kind of the approach of 2D animation in a 3D format, which...
Well, I guess you could say it's kind of like the Miyazaki films, like Studio Ghibli fluidity versus normal anime. Because I know a lot of people would give anime shit because they kind of did like the whole tween things where, they didn't have very many in-between shots. They had, like, keyframe.
Yeah.
But, instead of having, like, all the fluid movement in between.
But that works better with 2D, because 2D is more of, like, that...
I think, I'm just saying, I mean, it's similar in 3D animation, where they still have, like, the essential...
but there's more in between to it that creates...
Yeah, but I think the thing is, they don't do the in-betweens as much, like... else.
Again, I don't want to feel people think that we're just, crapping on. I mean, I think it looks good. I'm just
Hey, we're just trying to break it down.
Break it down.
Let's break it down.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just curious because again, it's like for me, I'm just kind of like, well, if you want to approach it more that way, then I'd say just go with 2D animation because I'm perfectly fine with that.
I was trying to make a point. I just kind of realized I forgot to make it though. But I think the reason why, especially like Polygon is trying to do 3D, is because, I mean, obviously in the West, in America and everything, 3D is huge. It's primarily what most studios use. So I think Japan is thinking, if we want to be cutting edge and if we want to keep up with everyone and appeal to everyone, we gotta do
appeal
3D.
To a larger market with this.
You guys don't do it as well. That sounds bad.
Well, I don't think I don't think it's a case that they can't. I don't think that they just don't have the skill.
Again, even if it's budgetary reasons, for whatever reason, it's not done as well as it could.
I don't think it's budgetary. I mean, Toho's bankrolling this. They got the money. I think it's more or less it's just more tradition. This is just kind of where they came from.
Know. Maybe you guys know. So
yeah, I think it's more or less like they want to animate it the way anime has kind of always been animated, more or less. But they want to kind of have the outward aesthetic of maybe a more modern design, which is fine. My only issue is more or less that the problem is, though, they're very different in their outward kind of approach. So it's almost like you can't really treat one like the other and vice versa, because even though they're both animation, they come from kind of two different schools of thought.
I was gonna say, what was that? There was a Saint Seiya movie recently.
Yeah, I mentioned that, but again, yeah, it's one of these like that where it's almost like if you're gonna do animation like like 2D, it's one of those things where it's like you have to just kind of accept that 2D animation is 2D animation, and that kind of movement is works for that because it's that kind of thing.
But I'm
Whereas
just
3D,
like, if they wanted to do 3D, why not do a more realistic looking one like that one? I'm
well,
trying to see what studio did that.
I don't know. And again, I think it's just choice, stylistic. Again, that's just my thing. I'm just like, okay, I'm perfectly happy with a classic, old school 2D animated Godzilla film. But if you want to do 3D, that's fine too. But all I'm saying is then utilize the 3D and play to its strengths again. Because again, with 3D animation, you can do things that you can't really accomplish in 2D. But at the same time, 2D has a certain quality or style and aesthetic that you can't necessarily capture in 3D also. So they both have strength unique to themselves. So I'm just saying, but they don't really work hybridized like that. Like, you kind of, it's kind of all, it's one or all the other, all or none. Like, I don't know. Again, I'm not saying it looks bad. It looks fine, but I'm just saying, like, we watched the most recent trailer for this film, and then we watched that little origin May from Overwatch, like, pretty much right after, and I was looking at the animation of that, and I'm like, it's so fluid and smooth. And I would look at this one. I was like, it has more than still the rigidity. Which again, depending on stylistic preference, that might be fine, and it is fine. I'm just curious because I kind of feel like because they're doing an animated Godzilla, a 3D animated, you can get kind of all the perks of like realistic movement that you get in a live action movie, but because it's not meant to look live action, they can really push it. So I would love to see that this really elaborate science fiction aesthetic, utilizing perhaps more modern 3D. Again, that's all I was saying about that. It is an interesting choice, and I don't know. Who knows? It could change a little bit because this is going to be a trilogy too, so we don't know if they're going to look exactly the same. We don't even know if they're shooting them all back to back. Sometimes I know in Japan, whereas here when we decide it's going to be X amount of movies, we'll just start shooting them back to back to back to back to
It's
back.
not really even shooting because it's 3D. So.
Yeah, but they'll
Production.
yeah. Whereas look at something like the rebuild of Evangelion movies, where they'll make one, see how it does, give it some time, then start the production and make the next one, and so on and so forth. So we don't know if they're basically making these all back to back and then just kind of dropping them, incrementally, or they're going to make this one and then start production-wise on a whole new one. So we really don't know. Japan is not like America, where in America we divulge everything about production, when it starts, when people signed a deal, everything, whereas in Japan it's like you don't really know much about anything till it's pretty much happening. So, again, the story is very science fiction. The design is very different. It is and it isn't. But like I said with Shin, even though this isn't really the Godzilla I would make, I'm glad that Toho is still trying new things now, because like I said, for the longest time Godzilla was very dogmatic in his approach. What he was allowed to be, what he was allowed to do. And while I liked what he was and what he did, I think Godzilla was unfortunately starting to become a little less relevant in the world today in terms of an allegory. So I like how now Godzilla went from being just, a nuclear allegory to now a representation of our mistakes. Now, regardless of what humanity is doing wrong, Godzilla can represent that. So whether it's a nuclear allegory, whether it's pollution, whether it's war, he can emerge and he can have an origin that reflects, that era of mankind, and so he has a larger meaning now that can cross generations, so I like that. Even though the way things are going in the world today, who knows if nukes could very well start flying, and then when that happens, guess what? Godzilla's going to be an allegory for nuclear weapons again. But that's the point. He now seems like he can be a message for anything. He can.
Well, and I think it's one of those things too, because of the they're using 3D. They can be more experimental you know, they don't have to make the suit, so they can
Yeah.
really kind of play with it. So
Which is also a little why I'm disappointed why he's so very kind of monochromatic. Because again, you don't have to like color the suit or even a realistic digital model. So I was kind of hoping they would, play. But here's the thing: he could change. Like I
Yeah.
remember for the longest time, everyone heard that Shin was going to have multiple forms, and we thought that was just a translation error.
yeah,
And then we found that no, he has multiple forms. So for all we know, we're going to see Godzilla change because obviously he's going to get bigger. So I'm
maybe
wondering.
he'll blossom.
That could be good. There could be there could be some Biolante references we're not seeing in there. Even though I kind of think an interesting story could have been too, like where the monster that sprouts forth from the earth is Biolante, and that Godzilla is almost like we have to kind of create or awaken Godzilla, kind of to fight that. So I almost kind of think maybe you could have had a bit more of the classic hero Godzilla a little bit, and make Biolante the this kind of main antagonist. Because I've always wanted Biolante to come back in a movie. I love her so much. We recently watched Godzilla versus Biolante, and I'm reminded how cool of a monster she is. I know there are a lot of people who don't like that movie. Weirdly,
And you're wrong.
Yeah, I don't get why. I think it's a
So
great,
good,
great
and her,
movie.
especially her monster form, is so awesome.
Yeah, it's my third favorite Godzilla film in the Heisei era, after Return and Destroya. But it's from just an aesthetic point of view. I think she's amazing looking. So I've always wanted to see her make a return. So
Hey, she's orbiting space somewhere, right?
yeah, right. Well, and again, she
Earth,
kind of
not orbiting space.
orbiting Earth. Yeah. Geez, how big is she? She's orbiting space. But again, we kind of got her a little bit in this, I guess. But again, I'm curious to see now what we don't know about this story.
Yeah.
Because again, there is a lot I know they're not telling us in kind of classic Toho fashion, which I like. I like that they give you just enough to get you You tell me you're making a Godzilla movie. That's all I need to know. I'm interested. But they give us a lot about the story, the details of the world, how this world functions. I like that. I like how they're pulling back or pulling from older Godzilla films and other tokusatsu films and bringing monsters, a lot of which we haven't seen in a while. So I'm going to be kind of curious to see what they look like updated, before they drop Godzilla on us. So maybe that's why they're making Godzilla a little bit so different too, is that we're going to see some of these classic monsters, and they might look a lot more traditional. So we're going to get a lot of that traditional element, and then we're going to get this new Godzilla, this kind of this really modern kind of new take on him. So I don't know. I'm very, and the other thing I'm curious too. Like I know they've showed other creatures when they go back to Earth, like these kind of flying winged creatures. The name escapes me at the moment, but I'm wondering, did all the other monsters die? Like, is Godzilla and those creatures...
Maybe he ate them.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, they make it sound like Godzilla has now taken over the whole world. So I'm like, I think maybe all the other kaiju are dead. Like, we see them in the beginning, and then he arrives and just takes over the world, and that's it. Like that. So that's kind of interesting, too, where Godzilla is basically just this god. He's basically just a kaiju version of Captain Planet, It's like, by your powers combined, he rises out of the ground, and that's it.
How do you fight that?
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, but... legions of spaceships apparently, which is really badass to me. Although when you see some of the trailer, they're zipping around these little like rocket packs shooting out. It made me think of like Attack on Titan a little bit when they're zipping around on the little
I'm sure that's not by accident.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like I want to see people like in spaceships, like because he's big, like he is massive.
Gundams.
Oh my god, the ultimate, that'd be an awesome crossover, like a bunch of Gundams fighting Godzilla. Yes. But hey, now that Toho is up for anything, now we could very well get that, so who knows. Okay, I'm very curious to see how this one's going to do in Japan, because Shin did extremely well. It basically swept the Japanese Academy Awards, including winning Best Picture. So Godzilla is a very hot property, and the hype for Godzilla in the West is getting really big too, because we have King of Monsters a little bit past halfway on principal photography, and it's going to be going to post-production, which means we'll start seeing some stuff, and there's a lot of talk about Godzilla versus King Kong, which yes, we'll be talking about that very soon, rest assured. So there's a lot of hype around Godzilla. But that's pretty much it, though. Like again, I didn't want to make it sound like we were like poo-pooing all over the animation. It's just interesting because again, we're in a point now in history where 3D animation is becoming.
Well, I was just trying to make a point that there are studios that are doing it on par with That sounds like I'm saying it's bad, but you know what I mean.
I think it's a stylistic choice. I don't think they're incapable of, because again, you look at like the designs, the rendering of like the shot. It looks amazing. It's just the movement, and I think it's kind of a stylistic choice. Sometimes when you would see in other anime, when it were like a 2D anime, when they would do like a lot of really fast action, and they would kind of stylize the movement, almost be like more of like a sketchy look. Mm-hmm. It was a stylistic choice, you know what I mean? And I kind of think maybe that's Polygon's thing. They kind of like do more of the traditional 2D movement and the 3. And again, for some people, hey, that you might love that, and that's fine. I just think it's interesting because nobody else is doing really 3D animation like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm curious what that's going to look like in the larger context, because this is the most ambitious project they've worked on. So I'm really curious to see what, a film of this
Caliber.
Caliber and scope is going to look done that way. So I don't know. I'm very, very curious. I like the art design a lot, though. I really like how they did a bit more of that 90s, slightly more realistic art design, of kind of the more like Cowboy Bebop sense of realism, where it's like it's anime, but it's not like, it's a bit more realistic kind of anime. So I like that. So I like that they went that approach, and ultimately I think they're doing a lot of things right here. Again, I don't want people to think that we're not looking forward to this movie, because my God, when this thing drops on Netflix, I am going to be like, closing all the curtains, everything. But yeah, so that's pretty much it right now. There's a lot of surprising things. I feel that they've taken a lot more, not risks, but they've done a lot more made a lot more daring decisions than even what they did with Shin, especially by having it take place in the future. And I like that they're using anime, its strength to that.
It's almost like with Shin, they were trying to just be like, if this was real life, this is what would happen, and now they're going the kind of other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, like, let's go super... And I like that. I like that Toho is playing around with it. Yeah, exactly. Like, they're not just giving us the same old thing over and over again. I mean, I like the same old thing, but I think they've realized if they want this character to remain relevant for years to come, they're going to have to kind of expand his scope.
It this way, they're kind of, it's a spectrum of movies where even if you don't like one, you're going to like the other. There's going to be a Godzilla movie for you.
Exactly. And there's some people who probably look at this design and think we're insane for nitpicking at the things we had, and think it's perfect. Just I knew there were some people who thought Shin was perfect. I know some people thought Legendary was the most greatest thing ever. Some people think the Heisei Godzilla is the greatest thing ever. Some people like
a variety.
Exactly. Godzilla can be different things. So just because he might not be my Godzilla in this movie, well, shit, the next one, it could be complete hell. He could change in this movie. That's the thing. Godzilla is kind of like Batman. He's had his suit
different incarnations.
Yeah, his suit has changed a lot. You look at the Arkham Asylum Batman, and then you put him next to the Adam West Batman, and you look at both side by side, and they're clearly both Batman. You have cape, cowl, the whole 9 yards, but they're very different at the same time, and that's kind of the beauty of it. The character's visual and backstory, even in this case, can evolve and change, and can be something for everyone over a period of time, and that's the strength. So even though this Godzilla, there's things I love. I love that Godzilla's jacked. I've always said, make Godzilla big. I want him big. I don't want him sleek. I don't want him slender. I don't want him lean. I want him just massive. And I like that they did that. So what? Again, I'm curious to see this incarnation of Godzilla, what this Godzilla is going to represent, and how he's going to behave, because we've only seen a few shots of him. Yeah. So I really want to see what his outward demeanor is going to be in the film. So there's a lot that I'm excited for, and I'm also excited for what comes next, because now it seems like with Godzilla, it's like you can't predict it anymore, and I love that. Like, what's Godzilla going to be next time? Like, that's kind of not the exciting thing. Like, what new incarnation is he going to kind of take on? But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, visually, there's not much to go on. Just a lot of those pictures of the statue and a couple, trailers. And it's mostly just kind of the detailed plot synopsis. Mm-hmm. So I think the rest of it's going to come down to when we see the film and really be able to know what is this new Godzilla. I believe it comes out in November. I think it's November in Japan. It was October, November in Japan. I'm not sure. I heard we're not getting it.
How long are they going to make us wait?
I don't think it's very long. I think it comes out like the next month or early or January. So we're not going to have to wait as long as we did for Shin. It's because it's going to be on Netflix. So it's going to be a quick turnaround. And also, I just want to say real quick, I like that it's coming on Netflix. Because even though it was great to see Shin Godzilla in theaters, and as a Godzilla fan, it was great to see Godzilla on the big screen, And it did very well. I mean, like it made good money for a limited release here. The reality is, more people will see this movie because it's on Netflix. You're going to be able to reach a wider audience utilizing this platform. So, for the sake of Godzilla and the franchise, I like that they're going the next Netflix route because I think that's better for it. Because only the hardcore fans like us are going to turn out in the theater. The average person's going to be like, what? I don't know. But if it's right there on their queue, all they have to do is click on it. They're more apt to check it out than having to drive out to a theater. So I think it's a great choice to go this route. And I think more people are going to be introduced to this character through this. And in doing so, get excited about the subsequent films they're going to come after. So I really, really like that they're going the Netflix route. I'm a big proponent of Netflix and streaming media and all that jazz. But yep, that's pretty much it, guys. It's kind of a bit more of a bare bones one. I say that, but we always end up running later than I mean to. But yeah, so that's it. Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, as it has officially been translated into English for a while, it was Planet of Monsters or Monster Planet. But no, the official title is Planet of the Monsters, which sounds pretty cool. But anyway, that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks for checking in. And next month, we'll probably be talking about Godzilla versus King Kong, which is the other hot topic of conversation in the kaiju fandom. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace!